In the world of political campaigns, money is everything. President Donald Trump spent $343 million in the 2016 election. And Barack Obama, he spent $779 million in the 2012 campaign. But in the 2020 presidential election, it's less about how much money you have and more about where it comes from. Candidates are embracing donations of $20, $10, and even $5 as more than just drops in the bucket for their campaign funds. Now candidates see those small dollar donations as accomplishments in their own right. And at the same time, they're shunning multi-thousand-dollar donations. The new focus on small donations is already reshaping the 2020 election.
Now, some candidates like Bernie Sanders are relying for up to 3/4 of what we would call small donations, which means money coming less than $200. Large transformation, and all of the Democratic presidential candidates right now are competing for that money.
For the September primary debates, the Democratic National Committee requires candidates to have at least 130,000 individual donors in order to take the stage. And as of right now, only a few candidates qualify under those new rules. That's forcing presidential hopefuls to campaign hard for people to give as little as $1. So how has $5 become worth as much as $50,000 for presidential candidates? Presidential campaigns are expensive. There's traveling across the country to meet voters, buying ads on TV and social media, hiring staff, the list goes on. Candidates can fund their campaigns in a few ways. The first are donations. Individuals can give up to $2,800 to a candidate in a single election. That adds up to $5,600 over a full election cycle, since primary and general races are considered separate elections. Candidates can also tap into their own personal funds. Donald Trump, for example, spent $66 million of his own money on his campaign. And then there are political action committees, or PACs. PACs are a way to channel money into campaigns in ways that exceed the standard donation limits, since individuals can donate up to $10,000 to a PAC throughout both the primary and general election. PACs can be created by a candidate's supporters, corporations, or a large industry group. They've gained a bad rap for having an outsized influence in politics and promoting corporate interests over voters. The lines are blurred even more when it comes to super PACs, which were created as a result of the 2010 Supreme Court case known as Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. The Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment right to free speech also protected political spending by corporations, nonprofits, and labor unions. As a result, super PACs cannot donate to candidates directly, but can spend money to support them in other ways, like through advertisements. Super PACs have no spending limit because of Citizens United. That makes them a target for campaign finance reform activists who say that donations should be regulated. Aside from PACs, large donations from individuals have also taken on a negative connotation in today's political landscape.
So in the past, campaign finance was dominated by the large donations, very much so. And I would say in the past maybe 6 to 8 years, that started to change radically.
In a time of heightened economic inequality, having big individual donors could give the impression that a candidate is cozying up to the 1% and listening more thoroughly to their concerns rather than working to address the challenges facing the majority of Americans.
When you go for the major donors, they want a little more pressing the flesh. They want to feel like they're part of your club by attending events, by getting photos with you.
On the other hand, having a large base of small dollar donations, generally defined as donations under $200, bolsters their image as a champion for the working class, willing to rail against inequality.
Small donors feel like they're part of a larger cause, even if it's not face-to-face, they're building a movement.
The growth of small dollar donations can be attributed in part to the growth of online fundraising platforms and digital payments in general. ActBlue, an online fundraising tool, launched in 2004 as a way to improve the digital fundraising operations for Democrats running for office. Its technology has been adopted by countless candidates, who have raised nearly $4 billion combined through the platform. ActBlue enables voters to give in small amounts seamlessly online or through their phones.
The Democrats are advantaged because they have this source of ActBlue that the Republicans still haven't tapped into. Donald Trump's a good small donor fundraiser, but the broader party is not quite caught up to the energy of the Democrats with small donors. I think that's an interesting difference that will play out over time, especially if Republicans don't figure out the technology.
In June 2019, the Republican Party launched its own version of Act Blue, called Win Red, to take advantage of the small dollar phenomenon. Trump even celebrated the website's launch on Twitter, calling it one of his priorities. In the 2020 elections, the DNC has raised the stakes even higher in the race for small dollar donations. The June 2019 debates required candidates to secure 65,000 individual donors, with at least 200 from 20 different states, or they had to poll at 1% in at least 3 national polls. That was so candidates with stronger name recognition but weak fundraising operations, like New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, still had a chance of securing their spots on the stage. But for the September debates, candidates must poll above 2% and rake in at least 130,000 individual contributions, with at least 400 coming from 20 different states. There are several reasons why the DNC wanted to institute these tough donor rules. First, the obvious. There's limited space on the debate stage for the crowd of 23 candidates and counting, so the party needs to consistently raise the bar to winnow the field. Second, President Trump currently holds the record for the most money raised through small dollar donations. The DNC hopes that by instituting a donor minimum early, it allows the party's eventual nominee to start off with a strong grassroots base during the general election to take on Trump.
Strategically, it's very beneficial to have donors are giving you in small amounts, massive amounts of people, because you can keep going back to these people later on in the election if you need it. And it helps the parties too, because they're putting together this huge database.
So where do the candidates stand in the race for small dollar donations? The 2020 candidates have released their second quarter funding numbers via the Federal Election Commission. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren came in first and netted over $12.7 million from small donors in the second quarter. Bernie Sanders continued to build on the support he gained during the 2016 race and came in second, by raising $12.2 million from small donors in the second quarter. But unlike his peers, Biden has stuck to traditional fundraising tactics. According to current donors, Biden has set up fundraising tiers to target his wealthiest supporters. Protectors, as defined by the campaign, must raise $50,000 from their networks this year, while unifiers need to rake in at least $100,000 for Biden. He raised $8.3 million in the second quarter. Some campaigns have pushed back against the small dollar wave, saying that the intense focus shifts priorities to producing viral moments instead of concrete policy plans. Despite the Democrats' strategic focus on small dollar donations, President Trump still has the incumbent's advantage and dominated the small dollar fundraising race, raking in $23 million in small dollar donations during the first quarter of 2019. For the rest of the 2020 field, it remains to be seen whether this unconventional strategy will pay off in dollars, cents, and most importantly, votes.